The team has been plenty active here since the end of the season, and obviously this a big one. Can you just generally say why this kind of commitment for this level of player makes good sense for your club, and what this kind of acquisition means for you?
Well, thanks for the question. It's John here. I think that I've gotten here, obviously, in June. The rebuild, or I term build, is well underway here, and I think everything that's been done has really been to the advantage of building on the build. With this summer, since the season's ended, you think of the ad of Jacob Trouba, a 25-year-old defenseman. Go back to Adam Fox, 21-year-old defenseman. The draft of Capo Caco, 18 years old. Kravtsov is now 19 years old from last year's draft, amongst many other young players. When you add a person like Panarin to it, he's only 27 years of age. He's averaged 80 points over the last 4 seasons that he's played in the NHL. He's a healthy body. We know he wants to be here in New York, specifically with the Rangers. It's a perfect fit. The idea of a build is to go through the time-consuming draft, get picks, and Jeff really did a good job. He and his staff of gathering picks. Then you go through the draft, then you go through the development, and as you do this, you try to do your best to find ways to make it all happen even quicker and better. And with these types of things I talked about, it's all falling into place. I'm ecstatic about getting Panarin here to join this group, and I think he falls right into our plan.
Thank you, guys. And quickly, just second, if John, this is obviously a player you know from back when you were in Columbus. For him, the meeting that you had last week, his visit, do you get a sense of, obviously it must have gone pretty well, but what kind of factor that was in essentially winning him over to commit here?
It goes 2 ways. I think he's always wanted to, and he's made it very vocal that he's always wanted to be in a big city, and there's no bigger city than New York. He in messaging with us, talking to us, talked about how he wants to win. He actually talked about Mark Messier and what Mark Messier did with the Rangers to get into the winning part of the business. And I think on the other side, I'll let Jeff answer this. I knew Artem very, very well, but our people here knew him as a player, but didn't know him as a person. And I think Jeff, you can talk about that. What type of feelings you got after chatting and getting to know Artem?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had a great visit with him when he came in, and right away you can sense his enthusiasm for the Rangers, for their big city, for the big stage. So, his knowledge of the game, his knowledge of our team, it all shined right through, and right away for everybody in the room, it was pretty exciting to hear some of the things he had to say.
A couple of questions. One, there's been a lot made of Artemi taking less today than he might have gotten from other teams. Did you guys have to draw a line, like how high you were willing to go, or was this a player you were going to get?
Yeah, I think we had to draw a line, Carpy. I think with all players in the market, you set you go in knowing what the cost might be. Things happen, and you make your decisions. But certainly, you have to draw a line. But obviously, a player we coveted, wanted, and happy with the results.
And if I could follow up that, lots been made of where the rebuild stands now, or the build, as JD just called it, and where it stands. And there's a lot of talk about it being accelerated, and you guys being in the picture for playoff hunt this year. But do you have to tap the brakes a little bit, knowing that you're going to have 9 or 10 kids that are in their first or second year in the NHL?
I think so. I mean, I think John alluded to, we're trying to get better every day, and I think what we did today makes us better. But again, we have a lot of young players that I think, one of the reasons we made this move is to help with the development of these young players. But we got a lot of work to do here. We're on a good path, but our goal, and I know you've asked this question, where the timetable is and all that. Our goal is to get it better every day, and that's what we try to do.
When did you know? There's been reports out there. Columbus obviously made a big late push. When did you guys get the feel that he was coming to you? Was it today? Was it last night? What's the feel you had?
Yeah, I would say we didn't really know until right after 12 o'clock today. I think he was thinking about things hard and long and hard there, and we really didn't get the call to get things done where we wanted to have them until a little bit after 12 o'clock.
And if I could just get you to confirm, I don't know if you can, is the terms out there, is the reported terms out there, is that what he got? I think it was 7 years, 81.5. Is that where you landed with him?
I think that's accurate, Dan.
Hey, Dan,
7 years, 81.5?
it's John here. Just to expand on that a little bit, these things become a process. When you sit with your group and have meetings, you talk about all the free agents to be internally. And we had thoughts and ideas on many different things. We obviously know that Artem is a player. We would covet him. But this is a process where you have to go through with everybody in your own organization. It starts with Nolan, and he worked with us. We had lots of thoughts and ideas, and it works all the way through the organization. So how do you put this thing, how do you put it, and how did you put it together? So everybody worked hand in hand, and these things take a long time. This is 3 or 4 days worth of sitting in meetings to get this thing to get to completion, which happened today.
And JD, you touched on it though. If I could ask one more, the idea that you know him, do you think that added to his comfort level in what was a whirlwind? I'm sure for him.
I think it helped, but I wouldn't. I'm not going to say I was a deciding factor for him. I think the New York Rangers. He knows hockey. The Rangers. 6 team. He knows it's New York City. He knows it's Madison Square Garden. He's a very thoughtful individual. He had 2 years in Chicago that were terrific. He was loved in Columbus, and I loved being a part of that organization. He was there. He's just a big player. But the way this reads, he has the absolute right when the time comes to do what he wants to do, and he had decided to move on to a bigger city. He kept his word. He had told us exactly that in Columbus, even though it was tough for the Columbus fans and management to see him go. But he's stuck to what he thought he wanted to do, and right now he's a New York Ranger, and we couldn't be happier.
I wonder how central signing Artemi was to your plan today. I mean, did you have a plan B or another kind of step that you would go into if he didn't choose you? And I guess how active do you expect to be now that you still have a little bit of cap space and you did make the signing?
Well, the plan was to stick to our plan, no matter what happened, and we feel that with Artem that he's part of our plan. I mean, he's 27 years old. Some might say, well, he's not 18 or 19 like some of these other guys, but you can't live with just 17 and 18-year-olds. You live with really good hockey players, and we think his prime is ahead of him. And he's going to fit this nicely, and that's the idea. And I know that again, when you get into the game plan you have to find the right pieces at the right time. And this popped up, and it's right for us. And as far as the rest of the off season goes, Jeff can address that.
Yeah, I think that as you look at free agency, there was very few players that we looked at would be part of what we wanted to do and accomplish. So, this is a guy obviously we set out to acquire, and thankfully it all worked out.
My question is, there's a little bit of information out there on his background and kind of what his childhood was like. So I was wondering if you could speak on that a little bit, and then also talk about maybe how that's helped him become the person and the player that he is today.
Yeah, I know a little bit about it. He was raised primarily in a small area of Russia by his grandfather. His grandfather really took care of him. He would take either long rides in a beat-up car with his grandfather to get to practices or play games when he was very young. If not, he would take the bus. His grandparents took the time, if he had money with him, to sew it on the inside of his waistband so he wouldn't be robbed, and things along those lines. One of the other stories is that he had skates, and sometimes the skates didn't fit right, so he would wear many layers of socks or even a shoe or a sneaker and put it inside the skate just so he could skate. And that might be one of the reasons why he has such a great balance in his skating stride, because of all that stuff that he did. But it's really quite a story where he's come from and to where he is today. And he's a humble kid. He's a young man who has always got a smile on his face. He loves to score. He loves to win. And I think he's going to love everything about playing for the New York Rangers.
Obviously, you had a plan A if you were going to get Artemi and a plan B if you didn't. I'm curious as to, now that you have him, what this may mean for Chris Kreider and whether you've had any discussions with, substantive discussions with Chris's people about, whether he's going to be staying or going.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've had a couple chats with Chris's group, and where it goes with any of our players, how this affects our players. I think, we have to take some time to figure that out. Today's, obviously a big day for us, getting Panarin, and that's what we're thinking about right now. But, we'll move forward here in the next few days and then start to figure out, what's next and where we go from here. But Chris in particular, obviously a really good player. He's a player we like a lot, and we'll continue to talk to, Matt Cater and Chris and see what's next.
And if I can just really quickly follow up, beyond what you get in terms of production from Panarin, what kind of influence do you think he'll have on some of the other younger guys in your locker room, like Buchnevich or Kravtsov, if those guys are around?
I think it's a great question, and I think it's something we thought about a lot over the last week or so, about the effect on the entire group. Obviously, we have some Russian young players coming into pro hockey here, and some guys that have been here, so I think it'll be positive. But, from what I know and talking to JD and everybody else about the player, he's a guy that's an infectious personality. He makes players better, and he's gonna help us in a lot of ways with a lot of different players. So I think it's a good question.
Just in terms of leadership, a young leader that Artemi is, a scoring machine that he also is, how much is that a factor? Was he the kind of young veteran you were looking for to shepherd some of these young talents along as well?
I think so. Artem is a very well-conditioned athlete. He trains hard. Touch wood, he's had really strong, good injury history. There's not a lot of it. Plays the game the right way. He's not only a goal scorer, but he can dish the puck very, very well. So again, the assists with the players he's playing with is helpful. He can do good things on the power play. There's really no maintenance to him when you think about coaching staff or management staff with how he plays. And I think that one thing that's good about it is for a player to come in here such as he is, we're going to have some young people in the lineup here. This isn't easy. This is going to be hard when you go through growing pains and these aren't just young people, they're really young players. And Artem's the type of guy that loves the stage. He loves big moments in games. If you remember I think it was the last Rangers home game of the season, Columbus was in, and he scored a late goal when the Blue Jackets, I was with them, they needed a win big time because we had to get into the playoffs. He scored a huge goal late to tie it and won it in overtime. He's that type of player, and he also, I think that when you see him play, the fans are going to enjoy it because of the style that he has to his game. He can be electrifying at times. So as we get this all going and young people see how he plays, I think it'll be infectious. I think it'll be infectious for the fans to watch. But again, everybody keep in mind that this is a process, and we're going through it, and he's going to be a part of it, just like the other people I mentioned, including Jacob Trouba, who's a terrific. Jeff did a magnificent job in trying to find a young right-handed defenseman who can skate, that's got some size. These are pieces that fit a puzzle, and we're trying to get that puzzle completed the proper way as quickly as possible.
Jacob Trouba was just mentioned. I'm just curious to know, with the offer sheet being offered today, what does it change in your part regarding the negotiations with Jacob?
I don't think it's changing much. I've had really good conversations with those guys, moving in the right direction, and I think it'll continue to do so. All our conversations is with Jacob and Kurt Overhart is how much he wants to be part of it, and New York and the Rangers. So everything's positive on that end, and we're looking forward.
All right, and if I may follow up on this, but just generally speaking, are you surprised to see an offer sheet being used? I mean, it has been, I think, 6 years since the last one. Is there some sort of code among GMs that this is not something that you would rather use, or?
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, obviously, it's in the CBA, and it's an avenue for teams to go down. So there's been a lot of chatter over the last, year or so that these are coming or whatnot. So you have your eye that these might happen, and obviously today we saw what happened, and I guess we'll see.
There's a lot of top free agents out there at all positions. Along with Panarin, there's Duchesne and everyone else. So just what made him stand out as the main target over guys like that?
I would say the combination of a lot of things we've talked about: his skill, his age, his ability to make people better, the fact that he makes plays. He's a goal scorer and a playmaker. He's a power play driver, puck possession driver. I think that the age, his background, the fact that we feel like he's got a lot of years left, the ability to make everybody better. There's so much that goes into that, but for us, he was the number one guy, and those are probably the biggest reasons why.
Jeff, I think back to breakup day, and you were talking to us, and about where the rebuild or the build was, and what the off season could be. Trouba, Fox, Panarin, JD, Kakko. Is it at all like you envisioned it? Did you expect it to go like this? Is it better than you thought it would be? Even.
That's a good question. I would say it seems breakup day seems so far away, Dan. There has been something, it seems like every day. But when you go through that and you're trying to plan your summer and what's next, you have a bunch of scenarios you go through and you talk, a lot of conversations, a lot of meetings, a lot of really helpful people that are helping you, and you hope that some of these things can happen, and as you move along, you try to check one off and then move on to the next thing. So I would just say that, listen, it's hard to say that a few months ago we said this was all going to happen, but you hope it does. You hope you get, your free agents. You hope that you can make some trades, improve your defense. You win the lottery, you have to get lucky there. So there's a lot of things that go into this, and a little bit of luck and whatnot along the way. So obviously we're happy. I'll leave it at that. And where do we go next is really where we're moving on to now.
Thanks, Jeff.
You're welcome.
All right, and your last question comes from the line of Jess Eisner from NewYorkRangers.com.
Hi, guys. JD, you mentioned earlier on the call that Panarin wants to be a Ranger, so I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on kind of his feelings and what it is about being here that excites him.
Well, I think there's something special about Panarin and the way he plays the game and the way he looks at the game and the way he thinks about the game. And I just in watching him play in big spots, he just seems to love it. He just loves playing. And I think the idea of he's going to be able to now, knowing that he has a 7-year contract in place, be able to move to New York, be able to enjoy what New York has to offer, which is a lot of very terrific stuff, excellent stuff, and then play in an atmosphere that's electric. He's mentioned about Madison Square Garden to me before and asked me what it was like and all this stuff in the past. And I was an ex-player playing here, and I mean, there's a lot of great places to play in this league. And but he was interested in the big city, in Madison Square Garden, and the history of the Gardens. So I just sense that this is something that he wants to achieve and be a part of. I know when we met with him and we talked and we asked questions. Again, and I'm going to say this again, this is not going to be easy. It's hard to win in this league. It's really hard to win in this league. And when you put these pieces together, some of them pop sooner than others. We've got a lot of youth. We want want Artem to be a part of this, and he's going to be, when these young players pop, he's still going to be in his prime, and I think he's excited about that. So I just think it's a win-win for him and for our hockey club.